Okay, so this is the first video on my channel about anime, and some of you watching this probably don't watch anime, so you might be thinking, what the fuck is this Chinese cartoon about high schoolers and why should I care? It looks stupid and gay. Which is true, but it's good, so keep watching. If you do know your anime, then you've probably already heard of The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya. Over the years, the show has garnered a very devoted fan base, despite how controversial the show has been. Or maybe because of how controversial the show has been. And when I say controversial, I don't mean Evangelion levels of controversial, I just mean that a lot of people just don't seem to get the appeal of the show, whereas others love everything about it and think it's a work of genius. So where do I stand on the issue? Well, I don't think The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya is a work of genius, but I do think the show is pretty great, and I think a lot of people seem to miss the point of the series. So this video is just going to be a pretty straightforward, to the point presentation of what I love about the show and what I think it's all about. It's not an in-depth analysis, it's more just me trying to get you interested in the show. Okay, let me start off by giving a brief synopsis of the show. The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya is about Kyon, an extremely normal high schooler, who one day meets Haruhi Suzumiya, an extremely eccentric and annoying person who is obsessed with aliens and espers and stuff like that. One day she convinces Kyon to form a club with her. This club is called the SOS Brigade, and the members include Haruhi, Kyon, Mikuru, Nagato, and Koizumi. But there's a twist. Turns out, Nagato is some kind of alien artificial intelligence, Koizumi is an esper, and Mikuru is a time traveler, all of whom have been sent to watch over Haruhi Suzumiya, who may potentially be a god. That's right, Haruhi is a god. These three characters task Kyon with the duty of keeping Haruhi entertained, because as it turns out, if Haruhi gets bored, the world might come to an end. But he's not allowed to tell her any of this, because guess what? If she finds out, then the world might end also. Yeah, pretty fucking weird premise, I know. Okay, so let's get started. To visually convey Kyon's grey, boring worldview at the beginning of the first episode, the show uses a very dull colour palette, with bright colours being brought in only when Kyon actually sees Haruhi for the first time. This use of colour to convey excitement and a change of worldview isn't an incredibly original idea, but the way it's executed is so in-your-face and dynamic, which perfectly matches the tone and energy of the series. Right from episode 1, The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya makes it very clear what the show is about. After being asked why she's so obsessed with time travelers and espers and aliens, Haruhi says this.
Because that way, life's more interesting.
And the way that line is presented visually really emphasizes its importance. Despite being named after Haruhi, the show is really about Kyon. And Kyon is a character who has become bored with his daily routine, and him meeting Haruhi is a way for him to make his life more exciting. In episode 2, he even compares his life to Sisyphus. For those of you who don't know, Sisyphus is a character in Greek mythology who has to push a boulder up a hill for all of eternity. By saying this, Kyon is commenting on the absurdity of his existence, and more importantly, the mundaneness of his existence. The show is all about exploring Kyon's boredom and the things he will do to escape it. And that's what I love about the series. From a distance, you might think that the show is just a dumb high school comedy with weird aliens and supernatural shit like that. But the truth is that the show is actually a very thematically focused show. The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya never loses focus of what it's really about. It's about making life more entertaining. And how do you make life more entertaining? Well, you create a premise where the main character has to constantly do entertaining, exciting things. But why does he have to do it? Well, because otherwise the world might come to an end. If you're going to write a story about a bored character who subconsciously wants his life to be more exciting, that's how you do it. I also love how we're always experiencing the story from Kyon's point of view, so we never get the perspective of Haruhi. Therefore, she's just as much a mystery to us as she is to Kyon, and we have to decipher her behaviour along with him. This creates a genuine sense of mystery that permeates the entire show. It keeps us on our toes. One of the ways the show chooses to entertain Haruhi, and by extension us, is by exploring various genres. The show can go from a locked room murder mystery arc to a time travel arc, and then to an arc about the SOS Brigade making a movie. The show does whatever it wants, or should I say whatever Haruhi Suzumiya wants. In a sense, the show is also very meta. It takes a normal high school student and confronts him with all of these anime tropes. Also, seeing that so much anime focuses on high school students, and more specifically, cute high school girls, the fact that in this world God is literally a cute high school girl is just perfect. I also love how the show is structured. The first episode's pace is actually pretty slow. It focuses entirely on how Kyon and Haruhi's relationship started, and the creation of the SOS Brigade. It's not even until episode 2 that we're introduced to the idea that Haruhi is actually some kind of god. and that's only at the end of the episode. The majority of the second episode is dedicated to Haruhi blackmailing a student from the computer club and then forcing Mikuru to wear a bunny costume to promote the SOS Brigade. That's pretty much it. And that's one of the things that the show does extremely well. It creates these contrasts between extremely mundane, typical high school comedy plotlines and then these complex science fiction concepts. But they're both just as entertaining, and the reason for that is because whether Kyon is being bossed around by Haruhi or fighting a giant monster, he's being entertained, and that's what the show's all about. And sometimes fighting a giant monster is easier than fighting Haruhi. The show's interesting structure, however, leads us to the most controversial arc of the series, the Endless 8 arc. A string of 8 episodes that basically repeat the same storyline over and over again in each episode. The reason for this is because the characters are actually stuck in a time loop. Obviously a lot of people weren't too happy about this, and I can definitely understand why. I didn't watch the show until a while after it came out, so I didn't have to watch the show on a weekly basis, but if I had, I definitely would have been pissed off. However, the fact that the show had the balls to reanimate what is basically the same episode 8 times is pretty fucking impressive, and it's this type of experimentation that fascinates me. And despite what everyone says about the arc, its last episode is probably one of my favourite episodes of the entire series. It offers a very emotional climax to the arc and tells us a lot about not only Haruhi, but also Kyon. The fact that the reason why the characters are stuck in a time loop is because Haruhi just doesn't want the summer to end is actually kind of sweet. And no matter what you think of this arc, the fact that Kyoto Animation would have the balls to do this just goes to show how intent they are on making the show structurally interesting and innovative. Throughout the show we often question whether or not Kyon actually wants this life, or if he'd prefer his boring routine, which is why we then get the disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya, a movie that shows us exactly how much Kyon needs Haruhi in his life, and how grey and mundane his life would be without her. And in that sense, the show's a love story, but not just a love story about two people, it's more a love story about two ideas. Kyon is us. He's something a lot of us can identify with. He's a bored high school student. And Haruhi is everything exciting about life. She's adventure, she's drama, she's action, she's everything. Everything that makes us forget about how boring and repetitive life can be. The best part about the show is that despite how wacky the stories can get, it never forgets the emotional journey that's at its core. Because the melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya isn't just a crazy high school comedy about time travelers and espers and aliens. No, it's a show about why we want all of these things in our lives. And that is how Haruhi Suzumiya makes Kyon's life, and by extension our lives, more interesting.